Imagine if just one small change, something as simple as cutting back on a teaspoon of salt each day, could lower your risk of stroke by 6%. That's not a guess. That's science. Yet while that number may sound hopeful, there's something even more alarming we need to talk about. Because in most cases, a stroke doesn't come out of nowhere. The body gives you warnings, 8 of them in fact, and far too often people don't recognize them until it's too late. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever felt a strange sense of fatigue, a sudden headache that didn't feel quite right, or a tingling on one side of your body that you brushed off because it went away? What if I told you those might be your body's early alarms, quietly trying to save your life? In this video, I'm not only going to walk you through the 8 early warning signs of stroke, but also give you 9 practical, science-backed steps you can take, starting today, to lower your risk dramatically. These aren't vague tips. These are real, actionable changes supported by real medical research. Whether you've had high blood pressure for years, live with diabetes, or simply want to protect your brain and independence as you age, this information could change everything. And here's the truth. Many strokes can be prevented, but only if we catch the warning signs in time and act on what we now know. So stay with me, because just a few minutes of your time could help you or someone you love avoid a life-changing or even life-ending event. Let's begin. Let's start with something that often goes unnoticed: high blood pressure. Many people walk around with it for years and feel perfectly fine. This is normal for me, they say. I only feel dizzy when it drops. But here's the danger. Just because you don't feel it doesn't mean it's not doing harm. High blood pressure silently damages the inner walls of your blood vessels every single day. It creates the perfect storm, weakening vessels in the brain for a hemorrhagic stroke, or encouraging fat and clots to build up for an ischemic one. What's worse is that this pressure can surge days or even weeks before a stroke happens. Think about that. Your body might already be signaling that something is wrong, just without sounding the alarm loudly. That's why regular monitoring is crucial, especially at home, where your readings are often more accurate than at a clinic. Now let's talk about another sign people often ignore: a sudden, unusual headache. Not just any headache, but one that feels different from what you're used to. It may come on fast and strong, or linger and grow in intensity. Some people describe it as a feeling of pressure behind the eyes or a sharp pain like a sudden jolt. This isn't the kind of headache you push through with a glass of water and a nap. In some cases, it's your brain reacting to a disruption in blood flow, or even early bleeding. And sometimes that headache comes with temporary vision changes or even brief blindness. That's not just uncomfortable, it's a red flag. Instead of waiting to see if it passes, this is the moment to act. Because these could be symptoms of what doctors call a TIA, a transient ischemic attack. It's often referred to as a mini stroke, but don't let the word mini fool you. Studies show that about 1 in 5 people who have a TIA will go on to suffer a full stroke within 30 days. That's a window of opportunity, but only if you take it seriously. Now let's take a closer look at something that might seem harmless at first: numbness or weakness on just one side of the body. Maybe your arm feels heavy. Maybe your leg feels strange, like it's not responding the way it should. Or perhaps there's a tingling sensation that comes and goes. It's easy to dismiss, especially if it clears up after a few minutes. But when one side of your body's affected, it's often because one side of your brain isn't getting enough blood. That's a critical sign. The brain controls movement and sensation on the opposite side of your body. So if the right side of your brain is struggling, your left arm or leg might suddenly feel off. It doesn't always mean total paralysis. Sometimes it's as subtle as your hand fumbling with a cup or your foot dragging just a little when you walk. But even a small change like that matters. Instead of saying, "It's probably nothing," ask, "What if this is something?" Next, pay attention to how you speak and understand others. Sudden confusion or trouble speaking can be another powerful warning. Maybe you're mid-conversation and can't find the right words, or your words come out garbled, even though you feel like you're speaking clearly. Maybe someone is talking to you, and it feels like they're speaking a foreign language. This isn't just being tired or distracted. It could be your brain struggling to process or produce language, something we call aphasia. Often, family members are the first to notice. They might ask a question and get a completely unrelated answer. That disconnect between what's said and what's understood is a big red flag. If you or someone around you suddenly can't follow a basic conversation, don't wait. Don't schedule a checkup next month. Get help right away, because a delay could mean the difference between full recovery and permanent damage. Another warning sign that's easy to mistake for something else is loss of balance or coordination. Picture this. You stand up and suddenly feel like you're swaying, or your steps are unsteady, almost like you've had a drink, even though you haven't. That kind of instability is often dismissed as fatigue, age, or dehydration. But if it appears out of nowhere and doesn't go away, especially if it's paired with other symptoms like slurred speech or vision changes, it could mean a stroke is beginning to take hold in the part of your brain that controls movement. In emergency rooms, I've heard loved ones say, "He looked drunk, but he hadn't touched a drop." That's how suddenly and subtly it can appear. It's not always dramatic, but it's always serious. Your brain's balance center relies on a steady flow of oxygen and nutrients. When that flow is cut off, your body responds fast, and not in a good way. And then there's extreme fatigue, a type of tiredness that doesn't match your activity level. We're not talking about being worn out after a busy day. We're talking about waking up tired or feeling so drained that lifting your arms or staying focused becomes a chore. Many stroke survivors later recall this kind of exhaustion before the event. It's the body's cry for help, one that's often whispered, not shouted. Let's not forget changes in coordination or fine motor skills. Maybe you're brushing your teeth and your hand just isn't moving quite right, or you're using a computer and your fingers can't quite follow your mind's instructions. These are the kinds of subtle but meaningful changes that should raise a flag. It's not total paralysis. It's a difference in control and timing, and it can indicate that your brain is beginning to struggle. Finally, watch out for vision problems. Blurred vision, double vision, or sudden loss of sight in one or both eyes may not seem like much at first, especially if they come and go. But vision is deeply tied to brain function. When your brain doesn't get enough oxygen, your eyes might be the first to signal distress. Rather than thinking, "I probably need new glasses," ask yourself, could this be something deeper? The truth is, none of these signs should be brushed off or postponed, because stroke is one of the leading causes of death and disability in older adults. And time, more than anything else, is your greatest ally. So now you know. The body does speak. It sends signals, even if they're subtle, even if they only last a few minutes. And those 8 signs we just walked through, they're not just symptoms. They are windows of opportunity. They're the difference between catching something early and reacting too late. But knowing isn't enough, because even if you've never experienced a single one of those symptoms, the real question is, what are you doing right now to make sure you never do? The good news is that stroke is one of the most preventable health conditions we face as we age. You don't need a complicated medical plan or expensive treatments to reduce your risk. What you need is the right information, based on science, not myths, and the willingness to make small changes that add up to something powerful. In the next section, I'll walk you through 9 proven strategies, practical steps that anyone can take to lower your stroke risk, protect your brain, and hold on to the independence that matters so much. Ready? Let's get into it. Let's begin with one of the simplest but most powerful actions you can take: reducing your salt intake. It may sound basic, even old-fashioned, but the science behind it is rock solid. A major analysis found that for every extra 5 grams of salt consumed per day, just about 1 teaspoon, your risk of stroke can go up by 23%. That's nearly a quarter higher risk from a habit most people don't even think about. And yet in most countries, the average person consumes 10 to 11 grams of salt per day, more than double the recommended limit. The World Health Organization advises no more than 5 grams of salt daily, which is about 2 grams of sodium when you check a nutrition label. But here's what's even more compelling. A study involving over 20,000 people found that using a salt substitute, where part of the sodium was replaced with potassium, reduced stroke risk by 14% and total deaths by 12%. That's not a theory. That's real-world data. So instead of seasoning every dish without thought, try this. Taste your food before adding salt. Look at labels. Swap regular salt for a potassium-rich alternative. These may seem like small changes, but they can shift the odds in your favor in a big way. And that brings us to the next step. Managing your blood sugar. You might not immediately link high blood sugar with stroke, but the connection is there, and it's strong. Over time, elevated blood glucose levels damage the lining of your blood vessels. That damage leads to plaque buildup, inflammation, and narrowed arteries, creating a perfect pathway for stroke to strike. If you're living with diabetes or even prediabetes, this should be a top priority. But even if you haven't been diagnosed, monitoring your blood sugar regularly can help catch early signs before damage is done. Remember, instead of waiting for a diagnosis, we can act now to prevent one. Another critical step is quitting smoking. You probably already know smoking is bad for the heart, but did you know it directly increases your risk of stroke, especially ischemic stroke? The most common kind? Cigarettes, cigars, e-cigarettes, even roll-ups. All of them damage the lining of your arteries. They increase clot formation, reduce oxygen delivery, and raise blood pressure. In short, they create the perfect storm for stroke. And here's the reality. It's never too late to quit. Studies show that stroke risk begins to drop significantly within just a few years of quitting. So instead of saying, "I've smoked for too long," what's the point? Think about this. Your body is still capable of healing, and the sooner you stop, the more time you give it to recover. Now let's talk about cholesterol. There's been a lot of confusion in recent years. Some people say cholesterol isn't harmful. Others claim it's misunderstood. The truth lies in the details. Yes, cholesterol is essential for your body. It helps build cells and hormones. But when bad cholesterol, LDL, gets too high, especially in people with other risk factors like diabetes or high blood pressure, it becomes dangerous. It sticks to the walls of your arteries, narrows the blood flow, and increases the chance of clots forming. What's too high? That depends on your overall health. A young, healthy adult with no other risks might do fine with an LDL of 130. But someone with a history of stroke or heart disease might need to aim below 70, or even 55. This is where personalized care matters. Work with your doctor to understand your targets. And don't forget about HDL, the good cholesterol that helps clear the bad stuff away. The goal is not just lower LDL, but better balance overall. Now let's shift to something incredibly powerful and completely in your control. Physical activity. You've heard it before, but let's dig into why it matters so much, especially as we age. Exercise improves circulation, strengthens the heart, reduces inflammation, and supports healthy blood sugar and cholesterol levels. But beyond the science, here's the simple truth. Motion protects the brain. You don't need to run marathons or spend hours at the gym. Walking briskly, gardening, dancing, swimming, or even using a treadmill in your living room. All of these can count. The key is consistency. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate activity per week. That could be 30 minutes, 5 days a week, or 50 minutes 3 times a week. Choose something you enjoy. The best exercise isn't the most intense, it's the one you'll actually stick with. Now let's talk about something most people don't associate with stroke: sleep. Specifically sleep disorders like obstructive sleep apnea. When you stop breathing repeatedly during the night, even for just seconds, your body suffers from low oxygen levels. That disrupts metabolism, raises blood pressure, and increases inflammation. It also boosts your risk of stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. Here's the clue. If you snore heavily, gasp for air during sleep, or wake up feeling like you didn't rest at all, you could have sleep apnea. It often goes undiagnosed because people think poor sleep is just part of aging, but it's not. Sleep is when your brain heals, processes, and resets. So instead of accepting bad sleep as normal, ask your doctor about a sleep study. The fix might be as simple as using a CPAP device, and the benefits can be life-changing. And that brings us to weight control. Carrying excess fat, especially around the midsection, isn't just about appearance. Fat tissue is biologically active. It releases chemicals that increase inflammation and disrupt hormone function. This chronic inflammation can damage blood vessels over time, increasing the chance of plaque buildup and clot formation. The solution isn't crash dieting, it's steady, sustainable change. Even a 5 to 10% weight loss can make a significant difference in your stroke risk and overall health. Let's talk about something that often gets overlooked: blood pressure monitoring. We've talked about how dangerous high blood pressure is, but here's the thing. You can't manage what you don't measure. Many people rely solely on readings taken at the doctor's office, but that can be misleading. Ever heard of white coat hypertension? That's when your blood pressure rises simply because you're in a clinical setting. The opposite also happens. Some people have normal readings at the clinic but dangerously high numbers at home, a condition called masked hypertension. That's why checking your blood pressure at home is so important. Use a validated monitor. Measure at the same time each day. Sit quietly for 5 minutes beforehand and write it down. Patterns matter more than one-off readings. Ideally, you want consistent numbers close to 120/80. But if your readings are creeping toward 140/90, that's a signal it's time to act. Even a small, sustained elevation can increase your stroke risk significantly over time. Lastly, we need to talk about arrhythmias, especially atrial fibrillation. This is a type of irregular heartbeat that can cause blood to pool and form clots in the heart. Those clots can travel to the brain and block blood flow, causing a stroke. The danger is that some people have no symptoms at all, while others feel a flutter, racing pulse, or shortness of breath. A simple ECG can detect it, but in some cases, a 24-hour monitor is needed to catch those brief episodes. If you're over 60 and have high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease, talk to your doctor about getting screened for atrial fibrillation. Because if it's caught early, medications like blood thinners can reduce the risk of stroke by more than 60%. That's a huge number, and one worth acting on. When you combine these 9 strategies: cutting salt, managing blood sugar and cholesterol, quitting smoking, staying active, improving sleep, managing weight, monitoring blood pressure, and checking for arrhythmias, you don't just lower your risk, you take back control, one decision at a time, one day at a time. If you found even one part of this video helpful, I want to ask you something simple but important. Will you share it with someone you care about? A spouse, a sibling, a friend who's been putting off that checkup? Because the truth is, strokes often don't give second chances, but sometimes one conversation or one video can change the outcome completely. Maybe you've heard your loved one complain about strange headaches or say they feel off lately. Maybe you know someone who's been struggling with sleep or skipping their blood pressure meds. This could be the nudge they need. And if sharing this video helps them catch a warning sign in time, You might have just saved their life. Now, before we end, I want to leave you with one last thought. So many people believe, I feel fine, so I must be fine. But health isn't just about how you feel. It's about what's happening beneath the surface. You've learned today that stroke can start quietly, that high blood pressure, high blood sugar, irregular heartbeat, all of it can do damage silently for years. So here's what I want you to do. Save this video, bookmark it, watch it again if anything feels off, and talk to your doctor about what you've learned. Prevention isn't about fear, it's about power. The power to stay independent, to protect your memory, your mobility, your life. Take care of yourself, stay alert, and I'll see you in the next video.